Before power was measured in market share, it was measured in territory. Let's review the ultimate strategists. The test is what happens when authority moves beyond the leader who held it. Departure reveals whether command was designed for continuity. Leadership transitions expose many hidden dependencies. Decisions pause, alliances shift, rivals test boundaries, and offices discover whether authority belonged to the institution or one person. Hidden dependencies become visible when routine certainty weakens. The succession problem is therefore an authority discontinuity. The old center recedes before the new center is fully recognized, informed, and connected. The gap is operational before it becomes ceremonial. Personalized power can appear highly effective during stable rule. Concentrated judgment enables speed, coherence, and decisive action when one leader controls the main relationships. Speed during one reign may conceal transfer fragility. Yet the same concentration creates a transfer problem. Much of the capability tied to the leader must be rebuilt, reassigned, or contested when the office changes. Concentration therefore creates both strength and inheritance risk. This episode examines succession through 4 questions: where authority resides, how it transfers, what remains continuous, and how uncertainty is contained. Succession is a system-wide movement, not a single appointment. The first vulnerability is unclear selection. When several actors can plausibly claim the office, many institutions must decide whose commands to recognize. Selection rules reduce the number of plausible competing claims. The second vulnerability is concentrated information. A successor may inherit the title while lacking the knowledge, relationships, and informal understandings that made the predecessor effective. Titles transfer faster than embedded judgment and trust. The third vulnerability is personal loyalty. Subordinates attached primarily to one leader may not automatically transfer commitment to the office or the next holder. Personal attachment can resist formal reassignment. Authority moves through institutions. A succession system succeeds when recognition, resources, procedures, and relationships transfer together rather than one piece at a time. Transfer succeeds only when these elements move in concert. The fourth vulnerability is unresolved distribution. Powerful offices may use the transition to renegotiate jurisdiction, delay compliance, or expand control. Transitions become opportunities to reopen settled boundaries. The fifth vulnerability is external exposure. Any gap in coordination can invite pressure from rivals who interpret transition as reduced capacity or divided attention. External pressure can amplify internal uncertainty. To analyze succession, separate designation from installation. Naming a successor is only the first step. Authority must also be recognized, equipped, informed, and operational. Designation without installation creates symbolic authority without capacity. Designation answers who should lead. Installation answers how institutions, resources, personnel, and procedures move into alignment behind that choice. Both steps require separate preparation and validation. Continuity depends on what survives the person. Formal roles, shared procedures, distributed knowledge, and recognized boundaries can carry authority across the transition. Continuity must be embedded in more than memory. Within that context, institutional memory is essential. Records, routines, and experienced officers preserve decisions and obligations that a new leader cannot personally reconstruct. Memory becomes a shared institutional resource rather than private possession. Succession also depends on timing. A transition planned too late may leave ambiguity, while one announced too early may weaken present authority or trigger premature competition. Timing shapes incentives before authority formally changes. A durable system therefore distinguishes preparation from displacement. It can prepare future leadership without treating the current officeholder as already removed. Preparation must not accidentally create dual command. The distinction matters because succession is both a governance process and a contest over future expectations. Future expectations influence present behavior under pressure and uncertainty. The more uncertain the future distribution of status and security, the more likely actors are to protect themselves before the transfer officially begins. Uncertainty encourages bargaining before procedures begin. The first stabilizing mechanism is a recognized rule of selection. The rule may vary, but participants need a shared basis for deciding whose claim should prevail. Shared rules narrow the field of legitimate claims. The second mechanism is distributed capacity. Institutions should retain enough knowledge and operational competence to function while personal authority is changing. Distributed competence keeps routine functions alive. The third mechanism is staged transfer. Responsibility, information, relationships, and ceremonial recognition may move through deliberate phases rather than one abrupt moment. Phased movement allows errors to be corrected earlier. The fourth mechanism is role clarity. Existing officers need to know which powers continue, which pause, and which move during the transition. Role clarity reduces hesitation and opportunistic expansion. The fifth mechanism is coalition reassurance. Powerful groups need credible expectations about their status, obligations, and security under the new arrangement. Reassurance lowers the incentive for defensive coalition building. Study the architecture of command. Succession is not only about the next leader, it is about the institutions that must decide how to behave during uncertainty. Each office interprets transition through its own exposure. The sixth mechanism is continuity of procedure. Routine administration should continue through established paths so the entire system does not wait for the new center. Routine continuity protects the institution from total pause. The seventh mechanism is controlled revision. A successor may need room to change direction without signaling that many prior obligations has vanished. Revision needs limits, so adaptation does not become repudiation. The eighth mechanism is information transfer. Formal briefings alone are insufficient when critical knowledge is embedded in relationships, habits, and tacit judgment. Tacit judgment requires deliberate relational transfer. The ninth mechanism is protection against premature capture. A potential successor should not gain unchecked control before legitimacy and accountability are fully established. Preparation should not become premature control. The 10th mechanism is a bounded role for the departing leader. Continued involvement may support transfer, but indefinite shadow authority can divide recognition. Departing authority must support transfer without governing from behind. The 11th mechanism is dispute resolution. A succession rule needs a path for contested interpretation that does not rapidly convert uncertainty into open conflict. Dispute paths convert rivalry into bounded procedure. The 12th mechanism is external signaling. Other actors must be able to see that command, commitments, and institutional capacity remain coherent. Visible continuity can deter opportunistic pressure. Together, these mechanisms reduce the gap between legal designation and practical authority. The aim is to compress uncertainty across several dimensions in practice and across changing conditions. A counterpoint is that institutional succession can slow decision-making. Distributed procedures may trade some speed for continuity and wider recognition. Continuity may require accepting slower consensus in exchange. That trade-off is not automatically superior. In urgent conditions, delay and divided authority can create serious costs. The right trade-off depends on urgency and interdependence. Another limitation is that formal rules cannot eliminate ambition, rivalry, or unexpected incapacity. Institutions can contain uncertainty but not remove human conflict. Design contains conflict rather than imagining it away. Within that context, succession design should reduce the stakes of losing rather than assume each contender will accept exclusion calmly. Lower stakes can reduce the incentive for desperate resistance. A conceptual case shows the resilient pattern. Imagine a transition with recognized selection, distributed knowledge, protected routine functions, and a staged transfer of authority. Each mechanism protects a different part of continuity. Even if the new leader lacks the predecessor's experience, the institution can continue while competence, relationships, and judgment develop. Capacity can mature while the institution remains functional. The fragile pattern is the reverse: unclear selection, concentrated information, personal loyalty, insecure elites, and no trusted path for dispute. Fragility begins when several uncertainties arrive together. Under those conditions, even a capable successor may inherit a system already divided by anticipatory competition. Competition starts before formal transfer when expectations are unclear. The opening question can now be answered. Power transfer destabilizes organizations when authority is personalized more deeply than the formal office reveals. Personalization is often deeper than organizational charts reveals. The severity of the crisis depends on how much knowledge, recognition, capacity, and obligation must be recreated after one person leaves. The transfer burden grows with each hidden dependency. Institutionalized power reduces that discontinuity by keeping important relationships attached to roles, procedures, and shared expectations. Roles preserve continuity by carrying expectations across persons. This does not guarantee a smooth transition. It lowers the number of essential functions that must be renegotiated at the same moment. Resilience means fewer simultaneous renegotiations. Strategy outlives rulers. The most durable succession system preserves continuity while still allowing the new leader to exercise real authority. Continuity and genuine renewal must coexist. This also explains why a highly effective personalized leader may leave an especially difficult transition. Success can deepen dependence on one person's judgment and relationships. Success can therefore increase later succession risk. A resilient institution treats succession as a normal operating process rather than an exceptional emergency that begins only when departure becomes unavoidable. Preparation turns succession into governance rather than crisis response. It prepares information, develops capacity, clarifies authority, rehearses transfer, and protects routine functions before uncertainty becomes a crisis. Routine rehearsal reveals weak points before departure. So, the practical question is not simply who comes next. It is what must remain continuous while authority moves, and who is responsible for carrying it. This question separates person from institutional function. Begin by locating decisions that stop when one person is absent. Those pauses reveal where authority is more personalized than the organization admits. Absence is a practical test of hidden concentration. Then locate knowledge held through private relationships rather than shared institutional channels. That knowledge becomes a succession risk even when the holder is loyal. Private knowledge should be converted into shared capacity. Examine whether potential successors can develop judgment without creating rival centers of command. Preparation needs boundaries, accountability, and a clear relationship to current authority. Development must avoid creating ambiguous authority. Inspect how losing factions, displaced offices, or departing leaders are treated. A transition becomes more dangerous when exclusion threatens status, safety, or basic security. Security for losers can reduce destructive resistance. The final application must remain bounded. Dynastic courts, imperial offices, military commands, and modern organizations differ in rights, coercion, ownership, and accountability. Analogy requires careful attention to moral and institutional distance. Still, one leadership question remains useful. Can authority move without forcing the entire institution to renegotiate its identity, obligations, and operating capacity? Transferability is the clearest measure of institutional depth. Effectiveness is not legitimacy. A stable succession process can preserve unjust authority, so continuity alone cannot settle whether the system deserves to endure. Continuity does not resolve the legitimacy question by itself. Use this lens to examine selection, installation, memory, capacity, coalition reassurance, dispute resolution, and the boundaries of departing authority. Together, these elements reveal whether succession is truly institution. The durable lesson is a question. Does succession transfer an office, or does it attempt to recreate an entire system around a new person? The throne changes. The strategy remains. Until next time.